All right, in this video, we are going to learn how to factor a polynomial written in ax squared plus bx plus c form, but when a and c creates a negative product. All right, as you learned in my previous video, step one to factoring an ax squared type of polynomial is multiply a times c. Now, because the a value is a positive 10 here, and the c value is a negative 14, when you multiply a positive times a negative, our result is going to be negative 140. So step one gives us a negative answer, which changes some things in this problem in comparison to my last video. Now we need to find all of our factors of negative 140, which means the only way to factor that out is to have one of the values be positive, and the other value has to be a negative. So we have to list them all out. And 140 is a pretty large number, meaning there's quite a few factors that go along with it. Take your time through this process and make sure you hit them all. Or once you get good at this skill, when you find the one that you know is going to add up to the middle term of 31, you can just stop there. But for this video, I want to list them all out and show you why the one I'm going to use is the proper problem. So what are my factors of negative 140? I could do negative 1 times 140. I could do a positive 1 times a negative 140. If I were to add these together, either or, they're not going to add up to 31. You're going to get used to this to where you don't write down the ones that you know aren't going to add up to the middle b value. All right, but for now, again, like I said, I'm going to list them all out for us. Okay, we're going to have a negative 2 times a 70. Negative 2 times 70, which means I could have a positive 2 times a negative 70. All right, there's no 3 that's going to go into 140, but I could multiply 4. So let's do a negative 4 times 35, or positive 4 times negative 35. Notice the pattern that's happening here. Negative, positive, then do that same number as a positive and the other as a negative. All right, is there a 5 that multiplies by something to get 140? Yes. I could do negative 5 times 28, or I could do positive 5 times 28. Oh, excuse me, negative 28. Almost made a mistake right there. What else? 140, 140. We could do 7 times 20. So let's do negative 7 times a positive 20, or let's do positive 7 times a negative 20. And 10 times 8 won't, 9 won't, 10, negative 10 times 14, or positive 10 times negative 14. Holy smokes, there are a lot here. Okay. Oh, can you see that bottom one? Yeah, that just says 10 times negative 14. Sorry, it's just a little bit out of my screen. But do we really need to list all these out every time? When you first start these, probably, but once you get the hang of it, you're going to go down the line. You're going to realize right away that that 1 and the number that you multiply by to get that should be pretty easy for you to figure out if it's going to make the match. I would right away ignore these because I know those aren't going to add up to make a 31. But when I get down to this negative 4 and this 35, I get a little bit excited. I'm like, okay, well, we're right in that realm of what we're looking for. This is probably where I'm going to be looking. All of these other ones aren't going to make any sense. We're not going to use them. But then you get to these two, negative 4 times 35, or 4 times negative 35. Now, which one of those is going to add together to make a positive 31? So you got to be careful there. Make sure you do the right one. Negative 4 plus 35 would make 31. 4 plus a negative 35 would make a negative 31. So see the difference. I'm trying to use the one that's going to make the positive 31. So we can cancel that out. All this information is wasted. I don't need it. I'm not going to use it. So that's why I tell you that when you first start, list it all out and make sure that you use the right one. But when you get the hang of it, you'll probably just pick and choose the factors you want to use that are close to that b value. All right, so now that I know I need a negative 4 and a positive 35, I'm going to write these two out as my middle term. So I'm going to show what that looks like right here. I'm going to say negative 4x plus 35 x and then I'm going to bring these down on the ends. 10x squared minus 14. So one thing for you to take away from what we've done so far is step A, multiply A times C. Step 2 was find factors of AC and use the two that sum B. We found the one that would add together, find the sum that matches our B value. Then step 3, rewrite rewrite bx using the factors. All right, and that is what I've done here. Now, my step 4 is going to simply be separate these into parentheses, the first two and the second two. So we now have two binomials. It's time for us to find the greatest common factor of each one of those binomials. So I find the greatest common factor of 10x squared, negative 4x. Well, a 4 can be divided by 2, a 10 can be divided by 2, and that would be my greatest common factor. So I'm going to pull the 2 out. This has 2 x's, while this only has 1 x. What do they both have in common? They both have at least 1 x, so I can pull that x out. And then I need to figure out what would 2x need to multiply by. Remember, this is like undoing the distributive property. What would 2x multiply by to make this? 2x times what makes 10x squared? Well, we'd have to have a 5 and another x. And then 2x times what would make negative 4x? And that would be negative 2. Now, remember from my previous video, we are hoping to find twins. We want to see a match in the other parenthesis that we get over here after finding our greatest common factor of this binomial. That will tell us we're on the right track and we're doing everything correctly. So if I find the greatest common factor here, pull it out, and then I have a 5x minus 2 on the inside of the other parentheses, life is good. Okay, here we go. 35x and negative 14. What do those both have in common? You guessed it. They're both divisible by a 7. Do they both have an x? No, they do not. So this one doesn't have an x. I can't pull an x out. So the only thing I can pull out is the 7. That is my GCF, or my greatest common factor. 7 times what is going to make these two terms? 7 times 5x and 7 times a negative 2. All right. Life is good. I have twins. 5x minus 2, 5x minus 2. So my last step here is to write one of the twins out, 5x minus 2, and then the other parenthesis, the other binomial, is going to come from my two GCFs. So I'm going to use this here, which is what I pulled out, and that there to write my other binomial, 2x plus 7. A lot going on here. Follow the steps. It's very similar to the previous video that I posted where everything up here would be positive. Same type of idea, except for here you're going to be listing quite a few more factors because you have to list the positive and the negative of each. Negative 1 times 140 and 1 times negative 140. That really is the only difference that we're dealing with here when AC creates a negative result. Hopefully this makes sense. You followed along. Just again, stick to the steps. I would highly recommend you write the steps out and practice, practice, practice until this becomes muscle memory. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test.